Hello.
Yeah.
Podcast streaming live on Wednesday, the 22nd of September. Unfortunately, I can't hear a thing at the minute, so I'm just ad hocing it. We'll try and figure it out as we go on. But joining me tonight is Ed Selley.
Oh shit, I'm just as well planned. Right, the more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain.
Right, his lips have stopped moving. Steve Withers.
Up your shaft.
Right, talk amongst yourselves. I need to sort this out because I cannot hear a thing at this moment in time. But welcome back to the podcast. I have no idea if Steve and Ed are talking or whatever. My headphones are useless. But yes, we're back here for at least an hour. It could be a lot longer than that. And we've got lots coming up. But first of all, Ed, what have you been doing this week while I try and sort out my issues?
Right, okay. Phil is going to have a quick go. I've thumbed him up on the screen in case he sees it. I have been working like a demon for AV Forums this week. There is a review now ready to go.
Did I see copy going into the CMS well before the end of the month?
Yes, only one item.
I was shocked.
I'll be talking about it a bit later on. But there are reasons for this. One specific to the very new and exciting nature of the product that we're going to discuss. The other is that from the 1st of October, I have to switch over to another project for a sustained period of time. So I do rather need to get my AV Forums things done pretty much on time, breaking the habit of a lifetime. So not only have I been doing that, I'm going to further shock you, Steve, that I've done 4 of my 6 reviews on the 22nd of September, which is unprecedented. I mean, even by the standards of the overuse of the word unprecedented in 2020 and 2021, that's pretty unusual. So yeah, I have largely been doing that. Other than that, I made my first soup of this phase of the year today. I mean, I know it's still not very cold outside, but there was a huge amount of mushrooms on offer in the supermarket this morning. And I thought, well, you can't just show that to me and I'm not make soup. So I did. I made an enormous vat of mushroom soup. And otherwise, it's been just the usual sort of cycle of things. It's been a whirlwind of product for lots of people. After, I don't know if it's the same for you, Steve, but after a period of time where like not a lot was happening and you were sort of like, is actually anything going to turn up? Even in the midst of a chip shortage and all the rest of it, I'm now receiving healthy quotients of new product, and it's keeping me pretty busy. So how's you?
Yeah, I'm good. I haven't done much either, really, apart from a bit of work, a bit of telly watching, the odd film. Quite a few films, actually. It's like buses. No discs for months. Well, certainly for the previous few weeks, there's been very few disc releases. And then last week, I got 18 4K discs in 1 week.
So, was that all pre-orders and stuff?
Yeah, it just all turned up on. I mean, basically, they all arrived in the same week. So it was... yeah, obviously I haven't watched all of them. I've dipped in a few.
Well, yes, okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, no, quite a lot turned up. So that's good. All I need to do now is find time to actually watch them all.
Well, that's a nice position to be in, and as has been discussed both on our sister podcast and across the forums. Let's face it, it is that the future of 4K is conditional on people dipping into their pockets and actually buying the damn thing. So you are doing a stand-up job in your own right to keep that going. We need to check. Phil's facial expression suggests that he's not actually hearing us.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think I've managed to fix the issue then. I know
Excellent.
what happened.
Well done.
Right. What have you been doing, Phil?
I was away on holiday.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've been on the Isle of Arran for. It was.
Did you find the old man?
It was.
And was he going round and around?
Yeah. It was supposed to be a full week. The weather was good to start the week. I did lots of walking, lost quite a bit of weight actually in the last couple of weeks. I've lost about 10 pounds. So I've been doing lots of exercise and stuff. Came back from there on the Friday evening, and I've had an extra 4 days on top of that, which I'd planned already around here. So went up to Kielder. So I went around Kielder, water and forest.
Did you do it sideways, wearing a Mac? Lombard styley.
So yeah, I did that, and that was great because I've never done Kielder before, even though I live so close to it. So we went and had a bit of a drive up there, then parked up at the castle and went for, I think we did about 3-4 miles through the forests up there. So yeah, it was good fun, really good. So that's what I've been doing. I haven't been doing much in the way of work actually, so it's been great getting away from TVs and projectors and all the rest of it. And although today's been back to it straight away and writing reviews and all the rest of it. So
Yeah, but never mind that. How many miles? How many miles has your big yellow car done?
I didn't use it. I didn't take it with me. So
okay, fine.
I was in other people's cars. So
Very
I was
wise.
a passenger for a change. So yeah, it's
Saved you a fortune in petrol then.
Yep, absolutely saved me a fortune in petrol. So yeah, it was good. Really good. It's good to get away. Good to have a holiday. And I hadn't had a holiday since I think 2019 was the last time I actually went on holiday. So yeah, it's been good.
Oh yeah, you and the rest of the world.
Yeah, I read about holidays. I remember them.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been good. And I'm planning to do a bit more. I've still got lots of annual leave to take, so I'm planning a bit more. Going down to London in 2 weeks.
Oh, I don't recommend that.
And I'm going to go and see Back to the Future, the musical, which is getting rave reviews at the minute. So I'm going to go and see that. So that's what's going on here. Glad you can all hear me, or some of you won't be.
There's a feedback that you're ever so slightly quiet.
That's maybe good for everybody as well. I'll try and sort that out.
Oh no! Look, there we go. You've lurched back into life.
Well, there you go then. We're having technical issues, but we're all experts.
Yeah,
here.
don't worry. My router's going to crap out sometime a bit later on.
Okay.
So you know.
Well, before it does, Ed, why don't you tell us what we can win on tonight's
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Well made. Okay, hang on a moment. Let me change my tab effortlessly. You can win Studio Canal's 4K restoration of The Servant on Blu-ray, Monster Hunter on 4K, Shudder's Terrified and Beelzebub, not Beelzebub, Beelzebub on Blu-ray, Studio Canal's 4K restoration of Mr. Klein on Blu-ray, Mayor of Easttown on Blu-ray, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard on 4K, Criterion's September titles on Blu-ray, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It on Blu-ray, and A Quiet Place Part 2 on 4K. Please head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. All competitions are open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK, except Phil. And we've got a boatload of previous competition winners, so stand by. Rhino 2K won a copy of Antebellum on Blu-ray. Nafni, whatever. Won the podcast exclusive Dark Star on Blu-ray. Well done. Tux 1977 won a copy of Sound of Metal on Blu-ray. Jeff, say hi! ! Won a copy of Spiral on Blu-ray. Graham 1875 won the Movies Podcast exclusive copy of Mandy on limited edition Blu-ray. Manjit won a copy of The Unholy on Blu-ray. Frog Lady won Peter Rabbit on Blu-ray, and Red One won the £80 Maigret limited
it's gone
edition.
Up a fiver.
Limited edition complete series on Blu-ray. So if you are going to fence it, you know notionally what it's worth. So you know, well done.
I'm sure it was 75 quid on the last one we did.
I don't know.
It's gone up a fiver.
80s rung up.
Big demand for Maigret box sets at the moment.
So
and they are in short supply.
It's
yeah,
like gas.
It's short supply. Everything's in short supply. So.
Yeah, it's like gas prices. Right. Well, thanks for that, Ed. That's competitions. Get entering. Remember, if you are a patron, your odds are really good for the patron competitions. And we also have an exclusive competition for the podcast, which is coming up at the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back in a second with hardware.
If you'd like to support the AV Forums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AV Forums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AV Forums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
So moving on to hardware, we've got a few things to get through tonight. So we're going to go through sources. What sources should you have in your home cinema? Continuation of our dedicated room building. We're going to talk about that in a sec. We're also going to talk about Bowers Wilkins' new 805 D4 speakers. Ed's been spending time with those, so stay tuned for his review on that, and the review will be live on the site very, very soon as well. And Steve's also going to talk about a new 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player, which is a very rare thing these days.
Very rare thing.
So we're going to talk about that as well. But because we had the audio issues at the start, I just want to say welcome along to everybody. If you are joining us live tonight, you can ask us questions in the chat window. The chat window is next to the video if you're watching live on YouTube. Stick your questions in there. If we have time tonight, we will try and get through as many of them as we can. Obviously, feel free to make donations and stuff as well. It is appreciated when you do that. And yes, if you're not watching live, but you do have questions and you want to ask us anything, then you can do that via email, which is podcast@avforums.com. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. It is important. If you do enjoy the podcast, then do hit the like button. Let us know that you're liking what you're listening to. And by doing that, you also help us find new audience members as well, because seemingly the algorithm likes that on YouTube, and it will serve our video to more people who might not normally listen in and may find something of interest here. Who knows? That's a distinct possibility. Right, let's move on. Let's talk about a new 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player that's not from Panasonic, who seem to be the only people still making them, Steve, or maybe Sony is as well.
There aren't many people making them. I'm pretty sure, well, Samsung definitely dropped out. I think LG might still have one model knocking around you can buy, but it's not great. Sony make a couple of models, make 2 or 3 actually, and Panasonic make quite a few. I believe Pioneer have discontinued their 2 players. They certainly appear to be in very short supply and very expensive if you want to get hold of one. So I have heard they've been discontinued. Could be wrong, but they don't seem to be any of them around, which is a shame because although they were pricey, they were universal players. In fact, the only universal player I can think of now, as far as I'm aware, is the Sony X1100. I think that's a universal player. I think that does SACD and DVD audio. But obviously, Oppo left the market a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, a new player on the market is, I say new player, looks an awful lot like an Oppo.
Well, I guess somebody had to buy the stock and the parts.
Well, see, I asked that question. I said, Jason, what's the deal here? Did you like buy all their spare parts? And they're like, no, we just, but it does look a hell of a lot like an Oppo. It's Reavon. Now, I don't know about you, Phil, but as someone who's familiar with the Holy Bible by the Manic Street Preachers, who we'll be talking about again later, I keep hearing the song Revol in my head. Revol! So every time I look at it, I always I'm going, Reavon! Anyway, it's the Reavon UBR X100. There's actually 2 models. There's the X100 and the X200. Now, if you're asking who the hell is Reavon, as I was when it turned up, they are owned by a Paris-based company called Group Archisoft, which is actually owned by Jacques Ben Sakhoun, who's the guy behind Zappity media players. So that basically who it is. But yeah, they said, well, we're using the same media chip, so it's going to have a similar system on chip. It's a MediaTek system on chip, so they're going to have a similar screen interface. But the front looks very similar too, and the remote's not dissimilar either. So there are quite a few similarities. I've got to say, the X100 is £699, and the which is just a little bit cheaper than I think the current. I mean, again, prices keep going up and down like a donkey's arse at the moment. It's difficult to get an idea of what, but I think the Sony UBX 1100, which is the one I mentioned, it does play both SACD and DVD audio. You can get for 749 quid, which is a pretty good price, and it's a good player. The Panasonic UB 9000, which I guess is the other competitor, doesn't play SACD or DVD audio. And has pretty crappy file support if you're streaming, if you're into sort of streaming and files from your local network, but is a great player, very well made, has THX certification, and obviously has Panasonic's dynamic tone mapping in it as well. So it's got some great features. That's $899 currently. So it's priced competitively for the higher end of the market. And that's the X100, sorry, that's $699. The X200, which is the high-end player, that's £1,499. Now,
does that look like the big Oppo then did?
No, it doesn't. It looks exactly like the X100.
Oh, okay.
Unless you look at the back. And at the back, it's got balanced XLR outputs. It's got so it's got left and right audio RCA and balanced XLR outputs. It's also got multi-channel outputs, whereas the X100 is a digital transport. There are no analog outputs at all on it. Strangely, the X100 plays DVD audio, but not SACD, but the X200 plays both. I did think they missed a trick there, because I think it's $699 for both playback. If you're into SACD, that would be a really handy feature.
Well, there is.
to have.
Let's face it. There's more of them around. I mean, DVD audio.
No, yeah, no one's got any of those. So yeah, it would be a more useful feature, and it would, it would be a universal player at a price below the two direct competitors. So that I think they missed a trick there. I don't know why that is. It's a strange thing, because you think, well, they must be using the same architecture for both. But yeah, if you want the more universal player, you're going to have to go for $1.5 which is a bit toppy.
It's possible, Steve. I mean, the main difference is that SACD, just another one of the limitlessly good ideas that means that it was never exactly mainstream. They spin at a different speed to all other discs.
Yeah.
So it's possible that that's whether, I mean, obviously, I don't know whether that justifies necessarily all of the cost increase, but it's perfectly reasonable in a mechanical sense to play everything except SACD because of that very peculiar requirement of SACD discs to go faster.
The other thing, and it's something that we touched on a little while ago, guys, is obviously that these players are going to start disappearing as they have, and of course, if people aren't building them, then the components aren't being made either.
No.
And like you say, if it needs a dual motor head to spin at different speeds, or it needs different pickups or whatever, or they're looking for a high quality drive, these things are getting rarer to find now for manufacturers to put these players together.
I mean, what I can't tell you what the production status of these items are. I'm afraid I don't know, but you are absolutely correct. And the thing is that even if they are in production at the moment, once demand falls below a certain point, as I say, this is not an industry that can go cottage. And I don't mean that in a euphemism. I mean, you can't have a group of men in a shed build a product like this. So, yeah, it's important. And it does matter. And there is a critical mass below which, if it drops, we have a problem.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at tape decks now, and I don't know if you follow Tech Moan on YouTube, he does a lot of tech stuff on video wise, but he covers a lot of tape decks, and it would appear now that there is only one or two mechanisms that are available now, and they are really cheap and really nasty.
Yes,
and it's very, very difficult now. In fact, it'd be impossible now for anybody to go and make an audiophile tape deck these days. If you can find one that still works, snap it up if that's what you want, because these things are dying. And the way CD is going to go the same as the tape decks have, and as are the drives for these video players as well, which
I mean, if it needs to be produced in a sterile environment using quite heavy machinery, it is to say it can't go cottage industry size. So yes, it's a concern. I mean, let's not jump the gun here. There is still a requirement for optical disc mechanisms. Quite what that means long term for SACD, I don't know. But if you do a search on the forum, there are now ways and means to get the SACD information off your SACD, and it doesn't just, thankfully, involve finding a mint original PS3. So it's not like you're losing this information forever, but you may have to readjust how you think about playing it long term.
Okay.
So I don't want to. I don't wish to be. Let's face it. We have enough doom and gloom at the moment. I don't want to come across as unduly negative. You're not. It's highly unlikely that any of this material will be rendered inaccessible by a shortage of hardware. I mean, the only time, and I hesitate to bring this up because it resurrects some lengthy arguments from the past. The only medium which is sort of genuinely fallen by the wayside is the accessing and viewing of 3D material as it stands now. That's a genuine challenge, but everything else, there are ways and means around it. So don't get too het up about it.
Yeah. Okay,
right,
so Steve,
talking about this player then.
Yeah, and wrapping up on the player then, because obviously your review is going to go up.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, if you want a 4K disc player, you can get one for 150 quid. So, or even less in some cases. So why would you pay 600, 700 pounds? Obviously the idea is you want a well-made player. It's going to be a bit quieter in operation, things like that. So as far as the X100 goes, in terms of it is extremely well made. It's a very attractive player. It looks lovely. It feels solid. It's a full-size player. It's very quiet in operation. nice smooth disk operation. As I said, it supports all the discs you'd expect it to, 4K, 3D, Blu-ray, CD, DVD, and DVD audio, but not SACD. It's got excellent file support if you want to stream stuff. It supports Dolby Vision, but not HDR10+. It's got a great remote control with the backlight, which is good. And on the back, there's an HDMI 2.0 output, an HDMI 1.4 output if you want to use it with your amp, if it doesn't pass through 2.0. Also, there's a coaxial and optical digital, and there's a LAN port. There is not any built-in Wi-Fi, which is very unusual these days when you consider everything, including the fridge, has got one. So that's a bit of a strange one. No Wi-Fi, although, if you're just using it to play discs, that's not really relevant. And obviously no built-in apps, but again, they weren't on the Oppo either. Again, it's a disc player. So if you want a well-made disc player that performs extremely well, delivers the goods, and looks great, don't expect it to look better. It's a digital signal. I have seen reviews of this player where people are going like, "Oh, it looks better." It doesn't. It does not. It does what it's supposed to do. It takes the ones and zeros on the disc and it outputs them as they are on the disc. So it's not doing anything to manipulate the image, which is good, unlike some players we've seen in the past. And it does it well. So if you want a well-made player, certainly this is worth consideration. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is some competition from Sony and Panasonic, different strengths, different weaknesses. But Reavon, it's a niche product for a niche market, and it does a good job, and it looks great and it's well made, and it's nice and quiet. So if it's in the room with you, you're not going to hear it.
There's one for the AV Forums t-shirts list, Stuart. Well-made player. Available only in 2XL and above.
That's so true. Right. So that wraps up Steve's review. Like I said,
recommended.
Yeah. Okay. The review's going on the website. It should be up on the homepage later this week. So keep your eyes open for that if you want to find out a bit more about this player, because they are becoming thin on the ground now. 4K players, which is a bit of a shame, but we are moving towards streaming nowadays. It seems that's the way the market's going. That's the way things are being dictated. So grab them while you can, people, if physical media is your thing. And why wouldn't it be if you're watching the AV Forums podcast? We are after the best in audio video. Right, so let's move on to our subject of building a dedicated room. We've been going over this for the last few weeks now. So we've covered the room in general. We've covered screens. We've also covered projectors. We're going to leave speakers for probably next week. And that's reminding me that we are here next week because it's a long month this month. So rather than the movies back, it's not back till the following week. So we are here next week. So next week, we're going to delve into speakers for your dedicated room. That's probably going to be the only subject because I feel that is one of the most important subjects when it comes to a dedicated room. You want the sound to sound good, and you have a whole list of options. So we're going to go through all the options for that, and we'll do that next week. So let's look at sources. What sources are you going to use in your dedicated room? If you're going to the trouble of building a dedicated room with a projector and a screen and audio system and all the rest of it, I would assume that you're looking for the best sources. And the best source out there, Steve, is still physical media, and it's still 4K Ultra HD disc.
Yeah. So, I mean, we should be talking about a player. I think if you're building a home cinema, you want to have a 4K disc player in there. How much you're going to spend on that player is entirely up to you. As I said a minute ago, you can get one for 150 quid. It'll do the job. It'll look at, it'll look the same as every other player, essentially, because it's a digital signal. But, there are other factors to consider. I think, if you're building your own dedicated room, get a nice player in there, something that's not going to be noisy, something that's going to look nice in the equipment rack, unless you've got a separate equipment room, of course, and something that's going to do the job. I guess, you'd want a player. If you're making a wish list of what your player did, what you'd ideally want is a player that can do everything for you out of one box. In other words, not just play disc, but also stream from your own NAS drives or something like that on your network. If you do that as well, then if you could get it all into one box, then great. But that, as I said, that's not necessarily the case because, for example, the Panasonic players, which are great players, are terrible. They have really bad file support for other things. Whereas the Oppo, long may the much missed Oppo, not only was it a great player that played everything, but actually had really good file support. So you could use that as an alternative to a media player or something like that. But definitely get a 4K disc player in there, and if you want the best picture quality possible, because obviously with a 4K disc, you're talking about very high bit rates, much higher than you'll get through streaming, and it's consistently the same every time. So you don't have to worry about your internet going down or being strangled for some reason, throttled, or just dropping off for a little bit or something like that. It's going to be the same consistent performance every time. If you want, you can also rip those discs and then watch them via a media player later. But get a disc player. I would definitely say. And if you're looking at disc players, I would say get a good quality one. Don't go mad. I mean, the 820 is always a good choice because
I would say I'd say it's the best player available at the moment. If you're looking for value for money, performance, all the features that you could possibly ever need, as well as good video processing on board, which Panasonic always nail the video processing. So yeah, it's one of the best players out there. Because
and it's got tone mapping features that if you've got a projector, not a JVC, that can be quite handy if you're getting the best out of your projected image. So I'm assuming we're doing a home cinema with a projector in it, so you're less concerned about Dolby Vision HDR10 Plus because they're not really supported by projectors, but you do want good tone mapping to get the most out of it, because projectors are not, they're not as bright as TVs, and so the better the tone mapping, the better the experience will be. So and the 820 would be my, in that price point. If you're going to go a bit higher, 9,000 is a fantastic player, but you're just paying for the chassis basically, and some XLR balanced outputs at the rear. If you want basically the same features, you can get it from the 820 for half the price, less than that even.
So disc player, and again, if you're going to have the components in the room with you, you touched on it when you were going through your review of the player there. A silent drive is ideal because these things do spin at a high rate of knots, and what you don't want is that transmitting through sound wise through the player and so on. And I've had some pretty awful 4K disc players in my room. The one that sticks out for me was the LG. I can't remember the model number now. I think that it was the first 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player that they launched in this country, and it was incredibly noisy.
It's the UP970, which was also the first Dolby. It was the only way you can get Dolby Vision at the time, unless you bought a very expensive Oppo. It was it's a piece of crap, to be perfectly honest. I don't think
you gave it a recommended badge.
It was a mean. The thing is, it was a means to an end.
That recommended badge was based on the caveat that if you wanted Dolby Vision, it was the best, cheapest way of doing it.
It was the only way of doing it.
As a player, they had made no effort other than to put Dolby Vision in there. I've still got it. It's in the bedroom.
Yeah, I've still got one, but it's sitting in a box.
And along with Samsung's, one of Samsung's earlier players, and it works. It plays discs just fine, but the interface was awful, and it was not the quietest player.
And I've got to say that is one of the downfalls for Panasonics as well. They can have noisy drives in them, the cheaper models. So you just be aware of that. Just if you're having the player under the TV and it's the other side of the room, I wouldn't worry about it. If you're going to have it in a dedicated room where you're trying to cut all ambient noise and all the rest of it, keep the noise floor down, probably not ideal.
The better built the player is, then the more isolation and the quieter it will be, just because you're not the drive, as you said, is spinning really fast. It's not going to rattle it.
To be clear, I don't mean to bring in the wacky world of accessories from the 2-channel world, but there are ways and means of taking something with a rotary disc mechanism and applying an aftermarket solution to isolate it and drop its noise.
Just to buy a better player, though, wouldn't it?
Well, no, it depends on the car. Honestly, we're talking, there's you literally just squidgy feet, and they're B&Q jobs rather than they can things like that can make. Don't go
to
certain retailers that charge you £1,000 a meter.
Yes, if you want gold,
they come with a magic wand, so it's really good.
So
anyway, so get a player.
Yeah, that's it. So your first source has to be player. Now, I did hint at the fact that streaming is incredibly good these days. it's gotten to the stage now where I think most people are perfectly happy with the quality that they are getting. And I'm talking about some enthusiasts as well who are happy with the quality they're getting from the streaming devices like their Apple 4K TV and stuff like that. And I've got to say, Steve, I'm more and more impressed as time goes on as to how good streaming can be, because we're now getting to the stage where things are being authored in certain ways that the bit rates can be low, but the quality is still high.
Yeah, and the compression algorithms are much better than they were in
a
the
lot
past.
better. Yeah,
I mean, and we're talking about projection here, so it has to be a good image, because any compression artifacts are going to really stand out on a big screen. So you really want a good. So obviously, I will caveat by saying it depends on speed of your internet connection, obviously, but assuming you've got a half decent one, then you can get a really good picture on a big screen from streaming. And obviously, a lot of shows these days are framed in scope ratio, so they really lend themselves to projection. But obviously, which one you choose is entirely up to you. You and I have both got Apple TVs. It's a great product. I'm invested in the Apple ecosystem. It's got all the apps I need, and it works really well. Does a really good job.
It's not cheap though.
No, it isn't. You can get a Roku stick for a lot less. It'll do basically the same thing. Or you can get a Fire TV stick. There are other options, and they're all really good. But obviously, the one thing you want to make sure is whichever one you go for, it's got all the apps you personally want. And these days we're talking Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, which is, I think, the big one of the better services, but doesn't get talked about as much. And iPlayer, ITV, Channel 4, all those sort of things. If you want all those things, certainly the three I've just mentioned, all do them. So you can get that. If you want actual broadcast television, you'll need to get yourself PVR into, particularly, I'm talking, because again, I'm thinking about you're using it with a projector here rather than a TV. So you want a PVR, some kind of a set-top box of some kind. The Manhattan box I love. It's great. It's a great box. It's not.
Do you
not
call
expensive.
it Dr. Manhattan?
No, it's a really good box, and it's also got iPlayer with an output HLG, which means you could take advantage of that. Because one of the big problems I've got with the Apple TV, one of the only problems I've got with the Apple TV, is that the iPlayer app does not output UHD. Does it, Phil? It's still an older. Well, I don't know why, but Apple's implementation of the iPlayer doesn't feature the beta feature, so you can get on a lot of the TV apps. The Manhattan app, iPlayer app, does feature them and will output 4K HLG to your projector, and most projectors these days can support HLG, so that's something you can get. Obviously, it also means you can watch broadcast TV, assuming you've got an aerial going into the home cinema, and you can record programs too if you want to. I know these days most people just use streaming apps, but I'm old-fashioned. I like to record stuff. I'm watching it by leisure.
At least you're saying record stuff and not tape it. I remember people still say, I'm going to tape this.
Do you look for the video plus codes?
4K. God, I forgot about that.
I loved my my VHS player that came with, do you remember it came with a reader and you had the barcode thing to program it?
I think people were too bloody lazy just to program it themselves. Or too stupid. Disc player, yes, definitely. Some kind of streaming source, because frankly none of the disc players will do that for you very well. So you're going to need to have some streaming source, be it an Apple TV or a Roku or a Fire TV or NVIDIA Shield, whatever it is. Something like an NVIDIA Shield is a good choice, because you can also then stream stuff from your home network if you're into that kind of thing as well. Otherwise, there's some quite good media players. Well, there's loads of good media players around. The one I'm using, and I really like it, is the Zidu, the 1000 Pro, Z1000 Pro. And what I particularly like about it is, because something that appeals to me is it's nice and well made. It looks good in the equipment rack with the Panasonic UB9000 and with the Oppo and stuff like that. So it's a product that's you can get the same functionality if you buy, say, I think it's the ZX9, which is cheaper, doesn't look anywhere as nice. So and again, you can use that for you can put a hard drive in there and you can store your stuff on it, or you can stream from a NAS somewhere else in the house. But that gives you the option of, particularly if you're into ripping your discs, because obviously, they take up space. So getting around that fact. So if you want to rip them and shove and then put it onto a hard drive, you can. What other sources are there, Phil? Have we got anything obvious?
I'm racking my brains, and I think we've covered most of
I mean,
the
we're looking at
devices
home cinemas. We're
No,
talking
to
about audio,
interject,
video.
I
We're
think-
not going.
I
for
think
a-
you guys are being absolutely correct on this, because I don't, there's the hovering over, do you include an audio source? If you are building a dedicated home cinema as opposed to a rec room, no, there's no scope, there's no requirement for you to sit in a, especially as we'll cover with speakers next time. I mean, it's not like the speakers that are optimized for film soundtrack use are bad at music, far from it. But it just, if you're going to this level of expense and you still have an interest in music, it's perfectly possible to build a small and engaging system that lives somewhere separate to that for less than it's going to cost to compromise your main system.
To jump in here, Ed, a lot of the apps now have transferred over onto these devices. So Tidal now, you can get Tidal through the Apple 4K box. You can get Dolby Atmos on there. So, there are ways and means of high quality audio onto your system.
No question. And then
room,
obviously,
but
Tidal is a bit of an interesting one, obviously, because of the Atmos mixes, which may make a creditable argument for inclusion into your AV space. Stuart has reminded us that there's these things called games consoles, which we'd forgotten about because we're old.
But again, games consoles,
gaming,
it's a media room, isn't it? It's not
this is
a
a home
dedicated
cinema, so I'm not sure I would game in a home cinema. I definitely wouldn't necessarily game with a projector, partly because they tend to have quite high. Well, a lot of them have very high input lags. Plus, also, you're going to be using up the bulb, the lamp life, unless it's a laser projector. So yes, but you're absolutely right. The PS5 and the Xbox both play 4K discs and numerous other discs as well. So that could be an alternative.
Ideal for a media room, absolutely, because they are very, very versatile. Again, we're just stressing the point. We are talking about a dedicated home cinema in this conversation. But yes, there are other
for the same reason, you could do a lot with a home theater PC, but that does often requires a bit more knowledge. I'm thinking more along products you can just buy and put straight in there, plug in, and you're off. Rather than something you're going to have to necessarily build or understand, and it's going to take a little bit more complicated.
And of course,
you get great results, but
of course, there's things that we are not covering here as well, which we will cover in the weeks to come as well. And I'm thinking about custom installation wise, because there are bespoke systems that are on the market that can be provided by certain custom install companies. Some of them even have access to film releases day and date with cinema releases and so on, where you pay a premium, hefty premium.
You cross their palm with silver for that. Yes.
But you have access to this for screening rooms and so on. So there's a whole other flip side to what we're talking about. And we're going to come on to this in the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll get some of the professionals on board to join us and go through what your options are if you have a bit more of a budget and you're looking for something that's a bit more bespoke for you. But there are other options. So yes, gaming consoles. There's lots of other sources, including really expensive server systems and so on, which we will touch on in the future. But like Steve says, we're trying to keep it as focused on what the majority of us can afford.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real, as Ed says. So other than streaming and disc, Steve, and of course gaming players, if you're into gaming, I guess we've covered most of our sources there, unless you go into dedicated network systems.
Yeah. I mean, if I look at my room, I'm sure yours is similar. My sources are I've got an HD DVD player in there, just for the old time's sake. There's a 4K disc player, two actually, the Apple TV, and the Zidoo that I mentioned a minute ago. And that's that gives me everything I need, really. I don't watch TV in there, partly because there isn't a cable going in there, an aerial going in there. Oh, is there? Actually, there is an aerial. No, I could do it, but I don't, because it's not really. Maybe I can. You might want to do it perhaps for like a big game, like a match on the big screen, maybe. But generally, I think home cinemas are for watching movies.
Yes. One thing I would suggest though is Sky Q, which is a system that can be used in multiple rooms. The only thing with that is that if you want 4K in the cinema, you have to have your main box in your cinema room, because the mini boxes don't do 4K.
Don't support 4K,
they're only HD. And that's one of the downsides I have to my Sky Q system, which I'm going to have ripped out very soon because it's just not getting used now. Is the fact that the main box is in the living room, the mini box is in the cinema, and I'm only getting HD quality. And to be honest with you, even that is pretty poor when it comes to Sky, and when it comes to their compression that they use. And I don't know.
I can't believe you went back to Sky, Phil. You're like Al Pacino, like in The Godfather Part 3. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yeah, well, they pulled him back in with an excellent price.
It was an absolutely superb price. They've put it up by a further £20, which is, it's still reasonable if I was using it, but I ain't using it. I'm not watching the sports. I don't watch the movies on there because you've got the pulse, speed up as well. When it comes to films on the Sky system as well. So yeah, it's just.
It's just occurred to me, I completely forgot to even mention Sky Q, which tells you why I think of it.
Yes, your thoughts on this are well recorded.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, it's another possibility though. If like Steve says, if you want to have the big game in the cinema or as a one-off or whatever, there are means to do that. I think going forward, I think the BBC's experiments with HLG and 4K via the iPlayer, I think that's the future. IP based has to be the future. I think satellite and so on, I think it's had its day. I think going
which is
forward,
why I was a bit narked at the Apple TV not doing 4K HLG for BBC iPlayer, because I could have watched some of the England games in the summer in the homes on the big screen, which would have been quite exciting.
So that's source,
delay, relatively speaking.
Yeah. So that's
as long as you
covered.
live near a pub, you're all right.
I'm scared to speak now in case you'll start talking over the top of me. But anyway, that's sources for you. Dedicated room, we're going to talk speakers next week. And I guess that kind of gets us wrapped up on the subject, and we'll open it up to more types of rooms in the months leading up to the holiday season. So I guess we'll move on to media rooms next after we've done speakers next week. And of course, there's lots of crossover here. But yeah, a dedicated home cinema, it has to be what we've discussed in the weeks previous to this. If you haven't heard those podcasts, then go back and listen to them. If you're a real glutton for punishment, go listen to that. So that wraps it up this week. Speakers next week. And talking about speakers, are we allowed to say this is an exclusive?
Now,
one of the firsts.
No. And let me clarify. We don't have the first review of an 800 series, new 800 series product anywhere. That has gone elsewhere. But we have the first review of the 805, I think, anywhere. It's certainly in the UK because I've got the only review samples. So yes, being as I am an egalitarian hero, I thought I'd look at the most affordable member of the range, and it's not simply because they're the only ones that don't.
When you say affordable, how much is it?
£6,250.
Actually, for an 800, that does almost sound affordable.
With an extra £1,250 for the optional stand, which hasn't been supplied for testing. I am at pains to stress.
What did you put them on?
I have an enormous pair of stands that were originally for a pair of JBL speakers from donkeys years ago. And when I encounter large and hefty high-end stand mounts, that's what they go on. So they are... they're well up to the job. I did check with the powers that be that they were content with that, and everyone was a-okay, so long as I used the little sticky blobs that Bowers and Wilkins put in the box to prevent me from marking the undersides of their brand new and extremely expensive loudspeakers. We're all a-okay. Right. I did a news piece when the speakers were announced because I went down to the factory before the announcement went live. So I've seen them being made. I've been given the full fat technical briefing. These are extraordinarily sophisticated loudspeakers. As I will mention in the review, and I've mentioned in the news piece, this is the best-selling range of high-end loudspeakers in the world, and not by a small margin either. It's not close. This means that there's economies of scale in the Bowers Wilkins 800 that just don't exist anywhere else in this, which means I will say this, I dislike dealing in absolutes, but I think this warrants it.
You're not a Sith.
No, absolutely. And I've lost my lightsaber, but I've tested more expensive loudspeakers than the 805D4, considerably more expensive speakers than the 805D4. I have not tested a loudspeaker which is better made than the 805D4. It is a combination of being able to use extremely high quality components and then put it together using they've got Bowers Wilkins has a truly terrifying robotic cabinet sander. It's alarming to look at, but it just means that there's a continuity of finish and the way it's bolted together that are, it's different to most other high-end products. And the way it feels and the way it comes out of the box. I've mentioned in the past that Bowers Wilkins is possibly the most effective hi-fi company in the world at making you feel better as you unbox your product. That feeling when you're staring at a box or two boxes and you think, I've paid as much as a good used Ford Fiesta for these, and you have that massive pang of buyer's remorse. They are better than anyone else at making you feel better, congratulating you, comforting you, encouraging you that you've done the right thing. So as a user experience, it's peerless. The technology, just to reference, the review will be going up presently. My hi-fi reviews are shorter than Stephen Phil's. They are in the region of 2,000 words long. This is a whopper. It's 2,989 words, and that doesn't include headings or quotes.
That's just an intro in one of Steve's.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Steve is the Cecil B. DeMille of AV reviewing, but for me, this is a long review. So trust me when I say I cover off the technology. So it's all in there. I'm not going to go over it at length. Suffice to say, it's still a 25mm diamond tweeter, and that's not a euphemism or a play on words. It is genuinely a synthetically created diamond dome. Latest iteration of the Continuum driver, which, don't forget, appeared for the first time in the previous generation of 800 series. So the Continuum bit is the same, but they've been changing other parts of it. Now, for people watching this, Stuart has just put on one of the photos. That's one of the very few photos I've taken in this review, and I did say this to Phil. The review samples are all black. They are enormously reflective. I had a brief go at taking photos of them. The results would not doing justice to them and were a mess. So this review has largely been done on stock photography. There are some photos taken by me of them in situ, if nothing else, to prove that I did actually take them out of the box and listen to them. So that's by the by. That's an aside, just in case anyone is wondering, because wherever possible, I do like to take my own photos, but only if they're going to be some good. Right, so you want to know how they sound. This is really important. All of the technical excellence that we've come to expect from a product of this nature is present and correct. I have absolutely no doubt that when people who are cleverer than I am and have access to measurement gear that I do not run them through their paces, they will do everything that Bowers says, and everything that Bowers says that they do is an extraordinarily accurate and distortion-free experience, both distortion in terms of driver issues, crossover issues, cabinet resonance. It's all extremely high quality. Much more important to that, though, this is by far and away the most fun I've ever had listening to a pair of Bowers Wilkins 800 loudspeakers. The cleverness is all there, but you're not listening to the cleverness, you're listening to the loudspeaker, and the loudspeaker it's a genuinely excellent listening experience. I've had times where it actually had me properly grinning, rewinding it, listening to it again, and not just appreciating it because it's worthy and because it's accurate and because it's a peerless engineering experience. I have enjoyed them because they are enjoyable. There's a strong element in terms of this behavior to the 705 signature, which I reviewed last year. Which was by far and away, again, some of the most fun I'd had with a Bowers product. I don't know where, I can't pinpoint exactly what's happened. I do genuinely believe it's some of the work that they've been doing with crossovers and the like. but that's supposition. I'm not an engineer able to pick this apart and tell you what's going on. But there are points where they have been genuinely engaging in a way that I don't always find offerings from the company have been. And I think that's an enormous step forward. They are easy to drive. They, as far as I'm concerned, you can provoke them into sounding a bit aggressive, but only if you do the same things that will make any speaker sound aggressive. If you play poorly recorded crap through them and you birch them, amazingly enough, they won't sound very happy about it. But that's what they're designed to do. The only criticism I will level at them, and I will expand on this in the review, is they do need a bit of volume to do what they do. They're not the happiest loudspeaker at tickover. So if you are aware that you will be listening exclusively at quite quiet volume levels, you may not experience the same sort of euphoria that I have when I've been able to open them up a bit. But that's largely the extent of my criticisms of them. They are a phenomenal product. I suppose the other one, and this is a subjective area, I don't consider this to be a beautiful loudspeaker. And I know, having read some of the comments, that a number of people do, so they will vehemently disagree with me. I think it's handsome as far as it goes, but its shape is governed by engineering, and Bowers then goes about softening the shape and making it out of the best materials they can. I don't consider this to be a beautiful product. I don't, for example, find it sits as happily in my room as the Kudos Titan 505, or I'm trying to think of more price comparative items. It may be even in the bright finishes that they do, and things like the Wilson Tune Top, stuff like that. I think it's it's functionally handsome, but I don't lust after the way it looks. But sonically, that's not a concern. I don't know exactly when the review's going up. It's in the tank. It's good to go. I will do my best to answer specific questions. There are certain elements of what it does where Bowers is not necessarily willing to let every single trick that they pull out of the bag just yet. So I'll do my best to get stuff answered, but it's a long old review. I try and cover off the bases, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, if you're listening live, that review's going up tomorrow. So there you go. You're getting an advance there, so you look out for that tomorrow. Probably around about mid-morning to lunchtime, that will get published. So check that out. Right, before we wrap up on hardware, and thanks for your review, Ed. It is appreciated.
You're welcome.
Just a quick mention.
Sorry, can I just interject something quickly? Because the last time we were together, we were talking about the new JVC projectors, and since then they have announced pricing for this country.
Right.
The NZ7 is 11,500 quid. Ouch! It's 9,999 in Europe and the US. The NZ8 is 15,800. Again, double ouch, because that's 14,999 in US and Europe. And the NZ9 is 24,999, which is the same as, it's comparable with the US and European prices. I did also see someone had posted somewhere a letter from JVC that they have supply issues, unsurprisingly. So their initial plan of having these out by the end of next month looks more like it's going to be the end of November. And if I was a betting man, I'd say more like December or January.
So you buying one, Steve?
Not those prices, no. I've been kidding. But to be honest, I mean, I had a long dark night at the soul. The N7 is a fantastic projector, and I've got a spare bulb stashed away. So do I need 8K? No. Do I need 4K 120? No. Do I need HDR10 plus? I'd be interested, but I can live without it. Do I need laser? No. So it would be very, very hard to justify that kind of upgrade.
Do you reckon you're going to sit out a generation, is what you're saying?
Yes, I think I probably am now, because I was watching a film on the N7 thinking like, that's a stunning picture. At the moment, of course, I don't know if the contrast ratios are going to be, and I know they claim it's 80,000 to 1. Sorry, 80,000 to 1, which is supposed to be the same as the my N7. But, these are brighter. So that suggests they have a higher, I think we mentioned this last time, didn't we, Phil? That suggests they'd have a higher black floor. Yeah. And they might be noisier, So there's too many unknowns to justify that kind of risk, and at those prices, I can't afford it.
Of course, we'll be getting them in as soon as they have some available for us to look at, which
Yeah,
won't be
that'll
for
be
a while.
2022 then.
So don't expect reviews of these unless they're pre-production things.
There's been some pre-production units doing the rounds in the States and in Europe, but I don't know of any units in this country at the moment.
Yeah. So
here on Brexit Island, it's unclear.
As soon as we can get hands on them, we will review them. Though, and people are always interested in JVC. The JVC always produce quality products, so I'll be interested to have a look at that. What I was going to say is quick mention. If you've got a Panasonic TV from 2017 onwards, one that runs my home screen, then you can now get Disney Plus on home screen. You just go into the applications list.
Late and never, boys.
It should be there. But it's nice to see a manufacturer going back to models as far back as 2017. So they are to be applauded for that, because
Is it as much a reflection that Panasonic hasn't actually changed anything in 2017?
No, that is also true.
Maybe, but it's nice to see a company doing that, because we've seen far too often that companies come in and say, well, it's not compatible. So, kudos to Panasonic for doing that. So if you've got a Panasonic TV from 2017 onwards and it hasn't turned up yet, go have a look in the applications list. It should be there, and add that to your My Home screen.
Disney Plus is worth having too, because it's not very expensive and there's a ton of stuff on there. I mean, I'm always on Disney Plus, and it's not necessarily for Disney stuff. Star has got so much good stuff.
It's a pretty significant category killer.
It is. It's that and Apple TV at the moment is where I'm usually watching stuff.
Yeah, so well done, Panasonic. And if you haven't found it yet, go find it, because it is great. Right, we're going to come back in a second with software.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com. and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AV Forums.
Ed, what's the album of the week? And it better be the Manics.
Well, you'll be surprised to hear this. It's the Manic Street Preachers.
Yeah.
And I believe that there may be a slight disagreement between us on this, because the album, The Ultra Vivid Lament, I believe it actually hit number one, which in a rare moment of having our fingers on the national pulse.
I think it's 21 years since the last had a number one album.
I know it's an unusual state. In fact, it's been more recent than that for me.
This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours. Was that the last number one album?
I think so.
But I'm going to stick my neck out. I think this is a good album, and you know what? I am delighted that they continue to push. They're still doing slightly different things. They're still trying new things out. They haven't just settled into a happy groove and just churning out the same thing over and over again.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Ed, they're too old now to be doing the whole political thing, aren't they? And flag waving and all the rest of it that they were known for in the Holy Bible and early releases like that. So that they've matured, I think. But they've matured well.
I mean, I preferred Resistance is Futile. I won't lie. I thought that was that genuinely meshed with what I was looking for in a piece of music, particularly at the time. But this is an extremely compelling work. And as I say, my major point of admiration is that they are, as you say, yes. I mean, in so much as a lot of the real Firebrand lyric stuff was always Richie anyway.
Yeah.
It was what he believed, perhaps more than the rest of the band. So there was always going to be a change for that. But there's still craft to it. Vocally, what's it? Gene Bradfield?
Gene Bradfield.
Yep, that's right.
He's not getting any younger, but he's still, certainly in a studio. Phil will be able to confirm, I believe, in the not too distant future if it holds up in the
if you've got BBC Sounds or you Red Button on Freeview or whatever, you can actually access the BBC Radio 2 live session that they did recently, where they played some of the tracks from this album and some well-known stuff, and it was really good. Really good performance. So it's one thing I'm hoping Steve's going to agree with me on this one, or I'm going to look a bit stupid, but I followed the Manics for a long time, And
30 years in my case.
Yeah.
What about you?
yeah, about that for me as well. And I've got to say, every time out of I'm going to see them on Sunday, this Sunday coming in Newcastle. This will be the 6th time I've seen them live, and they have always knocked it out the park. The only disappointment I've ever had with them was at the SECC in Glasgow. I went to see Lifeblood tour, and the sound quality in the venue was terrible, and it really ruined the evening. But every time I've seen them, they have been absolutely fantastic, and I think they thrive as a live band, Steve. They're just another level. The recorded stuff is great and it's well produced, but they can also pull it off live.
The Manic Street Preachers at the Astoria in 1992 is, without a shadow of a doubt, the best concert I've ever been to.
Blimey. Well, that's
it was brilliant. Interestingly, though, I found myself somewhat bored by the Ultra Vivid Lament.
Well, I haven't given you my opinion yet. Yeah.
So, sorry, Phil. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to agree with you, Steve. I am on the fence with this. It's definitely a Manics album. It definitely has some nice hooks in it. The problem is, I think Orwellian's been played so many times now. I've heard it so often in the last 3 weeks, because I think it's on everybody's playlist at the minute. I think Radio 2 are running it as their album of the week or whatever, and it just seems to be every hour on the hour. So I am struggling with it a little bit. I've listened to it 3 or 4 times now in the car, and it's a Manics album, but I don't think it's their best work, even though a lot of the critics are saying this is the best Manics album.
I much preferred Rewind the Film and Futurology, which were,
I think it's telling
before.
It's very rare that two or more people, when gathered together, actually have the same favorite Manics album.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to be honest, in part because of when it came out and so on and so forth, but This Is My Truth remains my favorite. And I know that a number of
Generation Terrorists is still my favorite Manics album.
Absolutely loathe it.
And it has to be Holy Bible for me. That's my favorite.
So there's lots and lots of different options. Well, in that case, can I just do a sneak extra? Because if we've covered, a worthy instance.
Can I just ask a question? Are you always staggering? I'm always amazed that the way James Dean Bradford is able to actually put those lyrics to music and then actually sing them. Because they're not really lyrics, are they? Nicky Wire just gives him a manifesto. There you go, sing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's impressive.
Yeah. And it's always high quality. I don't think I've ever listened to, we're saying that I haven't really bonded with this, and you were saying the same, Steve. I don't mean it's a bad album at all. It's just, when you've been in a band for so long, you have high expectations, I think, and it hasn't quite peaked there yet. But maybe it's just a few more listens.
Well,
and
sometimes they just got to catch you in the right mood. I mean, for example, I bought Lifeblood and didn't listen to it for 15 years. And then suddenly thought, I really must listen to Lifeblood. And then I loved it, and I've listened to it a lot. So, yeah, sometimes you've got to be in the right mood, or an album's got to get your attention. Not all the Manics albums have been, I mean, I still don't really listen to is it Know Your Enemy?
Yeah. I think
not one I listen to much.
Yeah.
And Holy Bible's not exactly an easy listen sometimes. And
it's not.
Journal for Plague Lovers is even worse. So
yeah, that's not my favorite.
But
what was yours, Ed?
This Is My Truth.
All right.
I know, and it's from a very different sort of phase in what they were doing, but it's a combination of timings when it came out, and I just think they did certain things in that, just in terms of the way it was produced and the way it's just done, which I enjoyed. It plays more to some of my sonic preferences across more than one band and so on and so forth. So yeah, just very quickly, if this isn't necessarily blowing your frock up, this is an album I completely missed when it came out in August. I took one look at the cover and I thought there's probably some interesting statements going on there, but Halsey, whose previous works I have tolerated, her latest album, If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power, was produced by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who did Social Network, loads of decent soundtracks. And it's absolutely brilliant. I didn't really get around to listening to it until comparatively recently, and I have been caning it of late. I think it is a fantastic album to listen to. So if Mannix aren't doing it for you, give her a go. Not literally, you understand. Just give it a listen and see where it goes from there. So yeah, that's music out.
Okay, good stuff. So hopefully you'll find something interesting to go and listen to there. In terms of production values as well, if you're into your audio quality and all the rest of it, got to say the Mannix albums are usually very, very well produced. So yeah, right. Let's move on to 4K discs of the week. And it should be disc of the week, but I think there's so many that you've been watching recently, Steve. I think there's 3 of them you want to mention.
18 and turned up in the last week, as I said at the beginning. I think you were having audio problems at the time, but I was just saying like busted suddenly, nothing for ages, and then a whole bunch of like the Columbia box set turned up, so that's 6 films. I'd ordered the Jack Ryan collection because it was going quite cheap on one site, so that's 5 Jack Ryan movies. I'm really looking forward to listening to the commentary track on Sum of All Fears with the director and Tom Clancy, just because of your recommendation, Ed.
It's one of the most toe-curlingly magnificent commentaries
that
in cinematic history.
And then I also got The Thing, Black Widow, and Shawshank Redemption. So I've sort of picked those 3 because they're recent releases in the last week. Obviously, personally, without doubt, The Thing is my disc of the week. Am I okay? So I had a thing.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry,
right. So my disc of the week, or month. Yeah.
I'm giving you the dignified silence you so richly deserve.
No. I had a message come out saying my internet connection was unstable, so I was worrying I was going to drop out then. Yeah, The Thing. Beautiful new 4K transfer. Looks absolutely stunning. Easily the best film's ever looked. I've got multiple versions of this on disc. I've got the original Blu-ray release, I've got the Shout Factory release, I've got the Arrow release, and now this. And without doubt, this is the best it's looked. It looks stunning, really good. I mean, it looked like it was shot yesterday, and the practical effects hold up really well in the higher resolution, because I was a bit concerned, will they still look good? They look great. It's fantastic. A bit of controversy about the soundtrack because it has a DTSX soundtrack. I thought it sounded great, but I know people who are more familiar with the soundtrack are saying, oh, well, they change bits here and there. And unfortunately, it doesn't come with any other options. So it's DTSX or nothing. Whereas, say, the Arrow disc had a 5.1 mix and it had a 4.1 mix that was the original theatrical mix. So that's caused a bit of controversy. I mean, people aren't happy to something to moan about. The thing I'll moan about is the packaging, because I got the 40 quid box set, which is packaged to match the 4 John Carpenter films that were released on 4K disc by Studio Canal. Stuart just pulled a picture of it, and it comes with the film on 4K disc, the film on Blu-ray, Ennio Morricone's soundtrack, and also the 2010, I think, or 2011 prequel / remake, which is also called rather confusingly The Thing, so, content-wise, I don't know if that's that important. I just quite like the idea of the box matching my other stuff. Unfortunately, they've screwed up the design, because if you look at the Canal Plus, Canal Plus boxes, they've got lots of stuff in them, so they're really quite tightly packed, which makes them more robust. Whereas there isn't as much stuff inside the 2 things that fold together. So there's essentially a weakness, and then the edge will basically compress and then bend. I've got OCD, so I hate it if there's any kind of damage on my discs. But I'm pretty much going to bet here that almost every one of them is going to look like that, just because of the design flaw, which is really annoying. Great disc. Obviously, if you're a fan of The Thing, you're going to get it, and you won't be disappointed. It looks absolutely stunning. I also got Black Widow. Looks great, 4K DI, I believe. Atmos soundtrack is pretty good, although it could mine the depths a bit deeper. Not a great. I mean, it's an okay film, but it's got some. I found it to be a bit by the numbers, and ultimately, kind of, what's the point? Post Endgame, it felt like they should have done this probably instead of Captain Marvel. They were going to do it at all. But now it just feels like an afterthought. And Shawshank Redemption, which a film I love, and again, it's a nice new 4K transfer that looks fantastic. So plenty out at the moment. After a barren few weeks of not much being released, there's a ton of stuff out. and more to come, because this week I'm getting F9, yay, and A Clockwork Orange. So
Clockwork Orange, I'm looking forward to that. F9, really?
Fast and the Furious,
Sorry?
presumably.
Yes.
yes, yeah, of course. All right,
Furious
got to
9.
keep my collection going. Can't give
Can I
up
just
now.
say that I
Can't
am-
let go of the balloon at this point. Too high.
I'm heading inexorably towards my 41st year on this earth, and I have still never seen The Shawshank Redemption, and I have no intention of doing so.
It's an adequate film.
Yeah. There's enough people whose opinions.
Oh, everyone's getting all controversial now.
I don't disregard out of hand going. It's just one of these weirdly overrated men films.
I definitely think it is overrated. It is a good film, but I think it's seriously overrated.
I disagree. But you're the same kind of people who say you don't like Forrest Gump and Titanic as well. Bastards.
No. I bloody love Forrest Gump.
Love
and if they could do me a Titanic cut where they get rid of the people,
Where it doesn't sink.
No. The sinking bit's all beautifully done. Especially, he's remapped the stars. He's done everything. I just can't be interested in the love story bit. I mean, it's fine, and that's no disrespect to people doing it. It just gets in the way of the sinking.
I actually thought I wouldn't give monkeys about the love story. I just want to see the ship go down. But actually found myself really engaged by it. And
well, I'm clearly more autistic than you.
And I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite films. It's one of my, I'm not even going to call it guilty pleasure because I think it's a brilliant film. It won 11 Oscars. But I think it's a cracking movie, and I just wish there was a 4K disc of the damn thing.
I think the 3D version is really good.
Yes, it is.
It's really good. Yeah,
the sequence where they ring through for full power, just as a journey through the ship. I just remember being absolutely spellbound in the cinema by that. It's just utter magnificence. Every frame of that is perfection, and it doesn't have Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
I want him to draw me like his French girls. Right. Shall we wrap this one up then? Let's move on to what we've been watching on TV. Like I said last time we were out, I've been watching Vigil. I'm finding it okay. There's some huge
bold endorsement.
But I thought after episode 3 I wasn't gonna continue, but I have continued right the way through. I think it's a final episode this Sunday coming. It's been okay. I don't know if anybody else has been watching it, but
no.
Too much other good stuff to watch.
It's on the iPlayer. It's in UHD on iPlayer. So if you fancy watching that, then I would recommend you go and have a look at it. It's okay. In the best possible way, it's okay.
Stirring endorsement.
Yeah. I did watch a thing about Stephen Hawking on Sky Documentaries today. It just popped up, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. Any interest in that, then it is a very well put together documentary. It actually covers his life story in some detail and goes into a lot of the things. Yes, it's very honest about what actually was going on, allegedly going on. So yeah, if you're interested in that, absolutely fantastic guy. Go have a look at that. It was quite entertaining, and it went into detail. It didn't skirt around anything. So yeah, that's on Sky Documentaries at the minute. I think it's called Hawking. Can you hear me? Yeah, recommend that. Right, that's what I've been watching. Over to you guys, Ed.
Right. I have been doing the classics, as you might imagine. Well, I'm still doing Mortimer White House Gone Fishing because I love it. I will be watching last night's episode of the Great British Bake Off after I finish this podcast. And Taskmaster kicks off again tomorrow evening. And those of you who've listened to this podcast for some time will know I will continue to bang the drum. I think it is one of the greatest pieces of British comedy of the last 40 years. So those are all very predictable. The only one I'm going to flag up as being slightly more niche, because I don't know who else has bothered with it. Netflix has released the 3rd season of Final Space, which is an animation that they've been tinkering with in the background for some time. Tonally, it's all over the place. You either gel with the fact that it does moments of quite significant grief, then suddenly with random fart jokes. But it does have, one, it's surprisingly beautiful, and two, it has the greatest theme music of of the last 10 years, and I mean that. The intro music, if I can buy that, I will just give me your money, take my money rather. It's fantastic. So if you've not, I mean, they're only 20 minutes an episode. If you've not watched any of them, I think I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but certain people it winds them up. So, take it with a pinch of salt, but I've thoroughly enjoyed that. But that's largely what I've been doing, other than listening to music and reading books, which I'm still doing, I'm afraid. I've really come back into reading books.
Good. I didn't want to admit that I'd been watching Bake Off.
No. Look,
Or Strictly.
In these incredibly
Trying
times, we are all looking for some beacon of basic normality, and the Great British Bake Off is a beacon of normality. And otherwise, we're running out of bloody everything.
I'd rather
we don't run out of flour.
Although, can we be clear about this, just in case anyone's a bit worried? Today, I ordered a portable LED emergency light, complete with solar charging. My view is that buying something that ornate and complicated
for the apocalypse,
or something that complicated, means I'm hopefully invoking the law of sod, and the lights will stay on all the way over the winter. So if it's still in the box come spring, you can thank me at the time. So that's my view of why I bought this ridiculous object. So we'll see.
The lights will stay on, Ed, but there are going to be about 6 power companies left in 6 months' time, with a lot of new customers.
Well, we'll see how we get that. That's just a technicality fundamentally. I have some concerns about the grid as it stands, but that's possibly a conversation for another time. So yes, Steve, what have you watched?
I just wanted to quickly say something because I wish I'd thought of it. But 3D Blu-ray Bunker, made you wouldn't get the joke, Ed, but he basically said, you were being obtuse about your thoughts on Shawshank Redemption. So if you've seen the film, you'll know.
Well, I haven't seen the film. That's the
no, I
whole
know
point.
It wouldn't work on you, but everyone else can laugh at you.
Okay, fair enough.
So obtuse. And I'm being obtuse enough for you. Right, what have I been watching? Same as before, really. So What If, Marvel animated series, quite enjoying that. That's on Disney Plus, obviously. Also Only Murders in the Building, I'm still loving that. Disney Plus again. And American Horror Stories, which is also, so Disney Plus is getting some good rotation at the moment. Obviously Ted Lasso, which just won a load of Emmys yesterday. Deservedly so. It's a brilliant series. I love it to bits, and really enjoying this season. Even last week's episode, which was all about Coach Beard on his own, basically having a sort of a Dolce Vita night in London after they got heavily hammered by Man City in the FA Cup semi-final. It's a great series. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it highly. And I'm just starting to check it out because it only arrived today. I don't know if you're going to have a look, Phil or Ed, but Star Wars Visions, which is these sort of short Star Wars things. Yeah, I know. Obviously, Cat, who has no life, apparently, I've seen them. But I was just one of you two had. But yeah, they're only like 15 minutes long each one, so they're fairly digestible. But yeah, they're anime done by Japanese companies. And given that Star Wars is essentially, reworking of The Hidden Fortress, which is a Kurosawa film, it seems like it's almost gone full circle, which is quite nice. So I'll check those out. And then this Friday, the big thing I think I'm really looking forward to on Apple TV again is Foundation, based on Isaac Asimov's series of novels. So that's my bit.
Is that Apple TV?
Yes.
Right. I'll have to
the gift that keeps on giving, I'll tell you. It's,
well,
it's the best kept secret in entertainment.
I agree. I mean, it's a faff for me to watch, because to watch it in 4K, I actually have to bolt the iPad to my B7 and the rest of it. But I'm terrified about this. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Foundation.
You're a fan of the books.
Oh yeah, and they're riddled with flaws. Please don't misinterpret my love for them for being blind to what's wrong with them. But my God, if there was something I considered to be unfilmable.
Well, I used to think it was unfilmable, but that was before they invented CGI. Now you're thinking, like, well, I guess they can do some of it now.
It's going to. My concern is the passages of time involved. But who knows? Who knows? I'm terrified that they're going to mess up something where, through the very nature of how Asimov wrote, I have my own visions of how these things should be. And if they mess about with Trantor, I swear I'm going to go to Cupertino and set it on fire. But we'll see how we go. I mean, nevertheless, if they do justice, I mean, because people said the Game of Thrones is unfilmable, and the last season was, but
yeah, and the Lord of the Rings is unfilmable, but it's just, if you can adapt it effectively,
yes,
and you have the technology
we'll see
to
how we
deliver
go.
the images.
To
then
answer
it can
Steve, this is enough for me to want to plug my iPad into my television. That's as much
As
as I can
long
say.
as they don't start getting involved in a load of modern day gender politics and that kind of thing, and try and just, although
Couldn't resist a bit of quick bit of daily mailing, could you?
Well, no, there's a time and place for everything, but sometimes it feels shoehorned in to the point where it becomes, it destroys the narrative of the story, because you're thinking, oh, hang on, I don't want to be lectured at, I just want to be entertained. Just want to be entertained at the end of the day. Just,
do you know what? That's one for our head. That's one for the headstone, isn't it? I don't want to be lectured. I want to be entertained.
I want to be lectured. I go back to school.
No, they won't let you, Steve. You've got a restraining order, remember?
Right, okay, well, that's it for tonight, I think. We just need to do the podcast competition, which Ed's going to do right now. So
oh, I am I? Okay, right, all the way down to the bottom. Scrolly. To win a copy of The Man with the Iron Fists on Blu-ray, just use the following question to select the correct answer from the competitions page. According to the title, what were his fists made of? Kaz is clearly channeling Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I just don't think he's bothered anymore.
Tendons and bone.
So yeah.
Okay, there we go. That's it for this week. So my thanks to Ed Selley.
If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a wagon.
And Steve Withers.
Live long and prosper.
That's it. Like I say, if you enjoyed the podcast, then please do hit that like button and give us a like. It really does help us out here at AV Forums on our YouTube channel. Anyway, it beats the algorithm. It puts us in front of people who maybe don't know about us, and we can bring them into our little AV cult.
We can spoil their lives as well.
Yes, exactly, and empty their wallets in the classifieds. Of course, you can also hit the notification bell, and it'll inform you every time we upload new video content to YouTube. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark avforums.com for latest reviews, news, and videos. And of course, leave us a rating on whichever service it is that you use to watch the podcast or listen to the podcast. If they allow you to give us a rating, then give us 5 or 10 stars or 20 stars or whatever the rating system is. Give us top marks. It would be appreciated. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And like I say, we'll see you again next week.